chair, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Moving on to item number 2, comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public? Seeing none. Moving on to item 3, corrections to the agenda or consent calendar. I was told we were going to pull item 4A from the consent calendar. Anything else? That is all. That is it. Okay. Moving on, item 4, adoption of the consent calendar. We have a motion.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second. Okay, no consent items brought forward. Moving on to item 6A. Oh. Oh.
Are you in? All right. I got 3 yeses.
Oh, sorry.
It didn't. Oh, here it is.
All right. Official? Okay, now moving on to item 6A, AD-HOC Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Brendan. Is this our first with Brendan? All right. Welcome to the board.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Brendan Cusick, and I'm a senior engineer. Today I'm requesting that the board, 1, adopt the plans and specifications for the AD-HOC Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project per California Government Code 830.6, and 2, to authorize staff to advertise construction bids for the AD-HOC Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. So I guess that begs the question of why are we doing this? So the AD-HOC sanitary sewer system was constructed in multiple phases starting around 1960, and with the oldest portions of the sewer system being about 65 years old, it's at a higher risk of failure. And previous sewer repairs in the Tahoe Keys area have been difficult, time-consuming, and expensive due to the high groundwater and dewatering costs to conduct those repairs. So that experience prompted the district to provide trenchless rehabilitation of sewer mains in areas like the Tahoe Keys where the consequence of failure results in extremely high construction costs. In 2024 and 2025, Dow, who's our design consultant on this, they conducted a condition assessment of the sewer mains located along 11 streets within the eastern portion of Tahoe Keys. The focus of that evaluation was mainly on the structural defects rather than O&M defects. Examples of structural defects include surface falling, sulfide corrosion, joint offset, infiltration, and missing aggregate. The most common structural defect observed was corrosion due to sulfuric acid, and other defects identified included pipe sags, falling, and joint chip. Based on that condition assessment, Dow identified sewers along 8 of the 11 streets as being most at risk of failure and recommended rehabilitation utilizing ultraviolet cured-in-place pipe. This trenchless technology provides the district with a corrosion-resistant solution to extend the service life of these sewers for another 50 years or longer. The engineer's cost estimate for the construction is just short of $726,000, and the staff plan to advertise construction bids for this project tomorrow or April 3rd. Future board authorization requests will include contractor award and professional services for inspection. Does the board have any questions?
The board, just a question on the budget. So the cost for this particular, this is one phase of the overall project, and is it basically just covering just the cost of this phase, or is it that we budgeted 1.9 and it's only costing us $725,000? Just some clarity on that, I guess, I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think initially, there was a broader scope of what we were going to line and going to do some rehabilitation on the manholes. But after kind of taking a closer look, about half that work didn't need to be done. So that's why the budget's higher than the construction costs.
No, coming from Finance Committee.
Very good. Yay!
Okay, so that,
So no more questions from the board. Are there any questions from the public? What would you like us to consider?
yeah, the staff recommends that the board, one, adopts the plans and specifications for the Tahoe Keys Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project per California Government Code 830.6, and two, to authorize the staff to advertise for construction bids for the Tahoe Keys Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. We're not that bad. Okay, we're official? All righty. Okay, moving on to... Great. Thank you. Moving on to item 6B, ordinance amending water storage and drought response standards. Lauren. Usually by the time I read the announcement, I look up and they're already standing at the podium.
Good afternoon, board members. Lauren Benefield, Water Conservation Specialist. Today, I present proposed updates to the district's water shortage and drought response standards in the Administrative Code to comply with Assembly Bill 1572. We are requesting these updates as the law requires water suppliers to amend their codes. As a brief review, AB 1572 is a law that bans the irrigation of non-functional turf for commercial, industrial, and institutional customers. Non-functional turf serves only aesthetic purposes and is not used by people. It is commonly found in parking lots, medians, in front of businesses. People are just walking over it. The ordinance includes updates to language and definitions recommended by the state of California. The language also includes required compliance deadlines for each customer class and outlines the exemption the law allows, such as for tree health and or economic hardship. As a final note, if approved, the ordinance will take 30 days to go into effect, and the updated ordinance would also be posted in the newspaper following today, if approved, per law. So, thank you. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Is Lakeside Keys, are they exempted from this, or is it by the state everyone has to do it?
By the state, everyone has to do it.
Do we have a sense of the fiscal impact on SDPUD as it relates to this? Like a note, that kind of a ballparky number?
I don't have anything just yet. We do have money through the Bureau of Rec Water Smart grant that is helping us to collect data, and then finally at the end of collection of data and into the analysis of kind of what we should expect the impact to be. So I can update you once I have that. We're working with environmental incentives to complete that analysis work. So TBD, the work should be done by December 26th.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to know kind of like when these things come down, generally like what does that mean in terms of staff time and cost and that kind of thing in the future. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say it's been really nice working and collecting this data to actually compile a list of commercial and institutional customers that have non-functional turf, so that going into the by compliance year, I can pull up and say, okay, so these are all of our institutional customers, and I'm not having to go through the 630 some commercial and institutional accounts that we have. So that's a blessing. And then I will say that our seasonal water efficiency technician, I am expecting that position to be really helpful. In the past has been Jennifer Cressy, and she's coming back this year, yay, because she just has so much knowledge when it comes to removing grass and what are some good alternatives for replacement and doing site assessments for our customers. So I would say most of those site assessments will probably come from that water efficiency tech, but then, of course, my position as well, tag teaming together. and starting outreach early so that it's spread over the course of, through the end of compliance, which is 2031, I think will be helpful as well. So.
Is there anything that might fall off of your work plan as a result of this, or maybe not be as implemented as to the fullest degree?
Yeah, so, we have to obviously comply with the law for the non-functional turf, but it's just making sure that people are actually doing it. The state has the water supplier as the enforcer of it, but we're going towards the educational aspect, more of the carrot, and then if folks aren't complying, then using the enforcement. So that's already inside the administrative code in our water shortage and drought response. But I've already reached out to different landscapers to give them a heads up that this is coming, because I do anticipate for our commercial customers, most of them are just going to say, hey, landscaper, can you just do this for me? So we shall see. The city is already starting that work. We did do 2 rebates for them last year for the turf buyback program. We have, after the last time that I was here talking about non-functional turf, we did amend our turf buyback program so that it maxes at $3,000 for all customer class, and not the $5,000 that was previous for businesses. So that we did make that update so that we can spread that money a little bit wider. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I just had a kind of a side comment actually that has been kind of in my mind since Mark gave his presentation 2 weeks ago, and it was to the water distribution for kind of use type, so from single family to multifamily and so forth. I can't remember the exact discrepancies between single family and multifamily, but after I left, I didn't want to get with the conversation, but my question was, do you see between those 2 different use types, like an internal use kind of change between single family and multifamily, or is the discrepancy just because single family has more room to make landscaping?
Yeah. I think it's probably the landscaping. I wasn't here for that presentation, but I would anticipate most of the multifamilies that we encountered do not have any sort of landscape associated with it, where a lot of our single family does have landscaping, and so I would imagine that's part of the water use. But, multifamily, that could really change depending on how many people are, occupying the units that they have. So, yeah. And multifamily a little bit, you might not get the the owner of the property is updating fixtures as much as maybe a single family would. If the person that's, owns that property is also living there, they're probably more likely to invest money in water efficient fixtures. So, yeah.
And then I also disagree with the carrot approach.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Seeing none, what would you like us to consider?
Okay. So district staff requests the board adopt ordinance number 597-26, an ordinance of the South Tahoe Public Utility District, amending Administrative Code Section 3.4 regarding water shortage and drought response standards.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Lauren.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right. Moving on to item 6C, ordinance amending and updating the water leak adjustment policy. Got a lot of policy going today.
Good afternoon, Sarah Nelson, Customer Service Supervisor. Today I am presenting proposed updates to our leak adjustment policy. The district's current policy was adopted in 2011 prior to the implementation of modern water use monitoring tools such as advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, Water Smart, our automated leak detection program, and was during a time when we conducted billing quarterly. While we are introducing updates to the policy, the core principle is remaining unchanged. Customers are still responsible for fixing leaks promptly, but are not responsible for increased charges resulting from a leak. The major changes seen in this update are, one, the customer must be enrolled in the district's Water Smart leak monitoring program. We introduced this clause to match industry practices among agencies using the same program and to help customers address leaks quicker, reducing potential damage and costs. The district's leak adjustment request is an electronic form via WaterSmart, which requires you to log in or create an account. So if you submit an electronic form, you automatically qualify. And two, the previous policy allowed for leak adjustments to go across 2 billing cycles or 6 months, reflecting our former quarterly billing structure. We now read our meters hourly, but at the time, we did not have AMI towers, and meters were only read every 3 months. So it would take longer for customers to notice an increase in their bills that could be due to a leak. We are changing this to allow adjustments up to 3 consecutive billing cycles or 3 months with the transition to monthly billing and implementation of modern monitoring tools. Customers are now able to identify and address leaks quicker, shortening the eligibility time frame to the leak adjustment also incentivizes customers to repair leaks promptly. The remainder of the changes are cleaning up and modernizing language so the policy is more consistent and transparent in our leak adjustment determination. We did look at policies from a couple of other agencies around the lake, and our policy is similar. Overall, this policy has been working very well for us, and our customers have expressed appreciation that it's available. Is there any questions?
I think it's great. Yeah, nothing on my end.
I was just looking at the testing policy. Like, I guess the customer has questions as to the accuracy of the meter. Basically, there's a charge for that. So then you have to do testing for that.
Correct. So typically when a customer calls and they are unsure that their meter is working correctly, our first step is we'll send out a meter technician to go check out the meter, make sure that it's working correctly. Usually they talk to the customer and that puts their mind at ease. If they really want us to take it out of the ground and bring it back to us to test for accuracy, we will charge them for that. No.
I've never been taught to like challenge the meter. Yeah.
It's rare. It's rare.
All right. Any more comments or questions from the board? And are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none. Sarah, what would you like us to consider?
The district staff recommend the board adopt ordinance number 598-26, an ordinance of the South Tahoe Public Utility District superseding ordinance 529-11 and amending Administration Code Section 6.4.11 and the associated Appendix Fund C, Scheduled Section 6.4.11 regarding the water leak adjustment policy.
Great. Welcome to the 21st century.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. We're moving through pretty quickly. That's good. Standing and ad hoc committee and liaison reports. You want to start, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. Just before this meeting, there was a finance meeting. Really quick overview. Going back several months, we looked at our capacity to what we could actually achieve every year versus what we were collecting the rate. And so that really kicked off at what I would call is a capacity-based kind of CIP process. Managing came forward a few weeks ago to really kind of express the research that that resulted after looking what our capacity could actually achieve every single year. Then that looked to then translate to our rates. And so we've been looking at 9.5 rates going forward for several years. There was a desire to look to increase that. The proposed budget within the next year is 6.5%, much more in alignment with kind of where the board was looking. We also talked about providing some background in terms of from a 9.5 to 6.5 to 5% rate. What projects as you have to step down that ladder are being removed, so everybody has a good sense of it. discussed is, emergency rate release and other kind of mechanisms we could draw upon in the event there was an emergency and we need to kind of advance things going forward. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is the unfunded liability we have for CalPERS going forward. We discussed, if you go back a little while, Kelly, there was the 115 account, the Trust 115 account. We're now looking to fund that up to $200,000. We're not sure if it's going to be $200,000 or something less, but look to kind of get in front of that so that way as we're moving forward, we're looking to kind of grab that unfunded liability by the horns. So I said it during the finance committee, but I thought it was a really positive meeting, taking kind of our direction as we looked at our capacity to where we are now, looking to bring those rates down to the greatest extent possible. So yeah, really, really positive meeting. We're going to have our budget board workshop on April 29th, same day as the solar ribbon cutting at the Node. Yeah. But no, I thought it was I was really, really impressed. Very, very positive. I don't know, Shay, if there's anything you want to add.
No, this is my very first ever finance subcommittee meeting, and obviously it was a big one and has implications. So yeah, we kind of worked through the proposed budget and the associated projects that are coming with that, including some of our fixed cost operations and maintenance and all the other fixed things that we need to be accounted for. So yeah, no, I thought it was a very positive meeting. I think there's going to be, again, you kind of mentioned it, you kind of tagged everything really. I think for the board's workshop, I think it'll be fruitful, good discussion, and I guess gain some improved awareness amongst the board in terms of the decision-making ability. So that was good. I don't think there's any other subcommittee meetings between the last board meeting and now, or at least
no operations. And operations will be next week. It will be the following Monday.
Okay.
Because both Joel and I will be out of town.
Okay. Great. Anything else on ad-hoc committee meetings or anything like that? All right. Moving on to item 8, board member reports.
Yeah, just quickly, I mentioned finance and would love to support the people in attendance to that, but I have referenced what we've always seen in terms of in the media as NV Energy kind of pulling out for providing South Lake Tahoe with energy. I see this as an opportunity for us. We were stymied in terms of what we were able to do. We maxed out a 1 megawatt system. It's been looking very positive. We're getting more analysis into that, and so would love to work with ourselves and other stakeholders, most specifically the city, to in this process in which kind of our relationship with our utility provider is in flux and where we're getting our energy, to max out our advantage and our opportunity to provide as much renewable energy on site as we can, and the ability, I would say, just at a high level to transmit again or across parcel boundaries. Would love to see if we could get something together again in concert, probably with the city, just based on the relationship and Ms. Letton's kind of research he's done into the subject matter thus far. So we could develop a plan of action, so we could start to take advantage of this. From Jeff to our lobbies and so forth. Not 100% sure how that will take shape. I don't know if we want to from a sustainability committee meeting. I can't recall when our next one is. Is it next week? Damn it, I'm going to be out next week. Sorry.
Come on.
We can do it.
So if we could, yeah, I mean,
Be gone.
right.
Well, I think I'll be here. Yeah.
But I mean, if we could move it even in the fall, I mean, we could do that offline. But and then I think we use that as an opportunity maybe to be an agenda item that we could kind of talk through and then create a plan of action if that works well.
Yeah. I'll be on the following week. So.
We'll work on it soon for both of you.
But yeah, that's just I guess given the news that NV Energy is no longer going to be a provider, Liberty is going to be looking for other sources of generation, and perhaps we might be a small fraction or portion of that generation capacity potentially.
And I think the community is looking for solutions, and to our charter that's a utility, doesn't necessarily specify water and sewer. And so as we talk about CFP, there's a lot of things that go into that, no doubt. But I think you probably in your own interactions you heard what community sentiment is for this, and I think we have an opportunity to help out while simultaneously leveraging out our kind of long-term costs, especially for Liberty. You know, Shane mentioned during the Finance Committee meeting, it's a very shocking line item every time we look at payment claims. And so we would love to bring that down. I think this is a really great opportunity. I don't think it has to be solved tomorrow, but we definitely have a window here that we should look to maximize.
Anything else? No? Very good. Moving on to item 9A. I've been looking forward to this presentation. Ross. Cross Connection Control and Backflow Prevention Program, prohibition of burying stop and drain valves and new construction. All right.
All right. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. My name is Ross Cole, and I am the Inspection Supervisor and Cross Connection Control Coordinator for the district. What I have for you today is a brief informational update on a construction standard change we are implementing here at STPUD, specifically regarding the installation of stop and drain valves on new construction projects. This change is part of our ongoing effort to protect the quality and the safety of the district's drinking water, and ties directly into the Cross Connection Control and Backflow Prevention Program that I have been developing here at the district. So I'll walk you through what stop and drain valves are, why burying these pose a risk to our water supply, and where we are headed with our cross connection control efforts. At the end, I'll open it up for any questions. So before we get into the specifics of a stop and drain valve, I want to make sure everyone is on the same page in regards to what a cross connection is. Simply put, it's a cross connection. A cross connection is any actual or potential link between our drinking water supply and a potential source of contamination. It doesn't have to be intentional. It just can happen through something as common as this buried valve. So, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So, a stop and drain valve is very common up here in our service area. It's so beneficial, and that's why I make it so hard to really ban them. But I'm not banning them. I'm just banning them from getting buried. So I brought one with me. This is what it typically looks like. And it usually looks like that. You can just barely see it. You put your wrench on it and you close it. But it's usually buried about below the freeze level, about 4 feet. So with that being said, they're just so beneficial to have at the lowest point, especially with our second homes and cabins. We can winterize it easily. Those are the benefits of it. But why it's not safe, we have a high water table. The water can be potentially contaminated. It has a little leak hole in it. So when this thing is submerged, it's sitting in water. And when you open and close it, it can potentially suck up any bad water, groundwater, or contaminated water. So to kind of go into more of an illustrative view on this slide, as you can see, when you have that open, that little leak hole is open to the atmosphere, and it can suck that water up. So the waste port is sitting directly in surrounding soil and groundwater. The waste hole opens when the valve is in any position other than fully open or closed. So anytime that valve is partially open and low pressure situation occurs on the service side or the house side, whether that's high demand, a main break, hydrant gets opened, anything like that, it can cause a drop in pressure. And that pressure differential can suck surrounding groundwater and soil contaminants directly into the line. This is called back siphonage. So you don't need a catastrophic event for this to happen. Everyday high demand situations can create the right conditions for the contaminants to enter the system. So about this program that I'm running, and I'm starting the district's cross connection control and backflow prevention program is designed to identify and address contaminants and this cross connection link. So let me take a moment to give you a little background on that program and where we stand with it. So STPU developed this program to protect our drinking water from exactly these kind of contamination risks. I wrote the plan, and as the district's cross connection control coordinator, registered with the State Water Resource Control Board, and I oversee a team of approximately 4 people that administer this program. So on the state requirement side, the State Water Resource Control Board mandated that all water agencies submit a formal cross-connection control plan, and we took that serious and developed a comprehensive plan and submitted it on time. So we are currently waiting for them to review it and approve that plan. And so once we receive that plan, I will come back to the board. We'll go over it. I'll present the comprehensive update on that plan, and we can move towards adoption. So in the meantime, we're not sitting on our hands here. We're just trying to make sure that we're covering these bases, as simple as burying these valves. So what our current practice here is we allow them. We actually allow them to be buried. And that's and we've been allowing them for years and years and years, just because they're so beneficial. And I think it was kind of a hard Band-Aid to rip off to prevent that. So, so what I'm saying is that you can have them, but you have to keep them above ground. And I actually live on the North Shore, and they are in the crawl spaces, and they're above ground. They're about a foot above the dirt. So you can still have your shut-off valve outside, but it cannot have the stop and drain feature. The bummer. But you can put it in this crawl space where it's protected from freeze in perfect situations with insulation. But when you drain it, it drains the atmosphere, and it kind of eliminates that risk of cross connection. So the new standard I'm looking to move forward to is like, you can have them, you just can't bury them. And if you are insisting on having that, you will have to put a backflow device before it to protect the district's water system from it. You can still have it, and that's your own prerogative, but it's not a good thing to do. You could risk your family's health with the water, but that's up to you. But I need to protect the district's water system. So that's what we're trying to move forward to. So, so our next steps here is, I just wanted to bring you guys into the loop because this is a big move. If everyone's comfortable with these being buried, I mean, they work great. But we need to kind of get out of that, and this aligns with Tahoe City PUD doesn't allow them buried. North Tahoe PUD doesn't allow them to be buried. There's a lot of different people that. Uniform Plumbing Code, International Plumbing Code says this, that you can't bury it. So I want to move to that and start bringing these above ground and eliminating that risk. So, so the next steps will be is a press release, and then followed by a contractor's workshop that we're going to set up. I have a Rolodex. Do anyone have this? So a Rolodex of plumbers and contractors that we're going to bring here, and we're going to talk about that, instruct people about that. And I think it will help. It does raise the question of the existing ones that are in the ground. Right now, I'm in a kind of a information data gathering situation where we're going to see how many we have out there with our cross connection control program hazard assessments that we'll do on houses, and kind of try to get an idea and maybe extrapolate that data to see if, is there really 15,000 of them out there? And then maybe we can move towards some grant funding or move towards eliminating them as they fail. Whatever that looks like, we don't know. But I need to kind of get a better idea and feel for what's going on in the public with that. So we're going to get that contractor meeting, get everyone on the same page. And then, like I said, once the State Water Resource Control Board approves that plan, I will bring it to you guys and we'll talk about it and hopefully adopt it. So, do you have any questions?
I suppose I do, and maybe I'm just naive in that as I think about my own system at my own house, there's a shut-off right at the meter. There's another one that comes into the house, and it's buried about 5 feet. Mm-hmm. And we did have a remodel. I'm not sure to what extent plumbing code requires them to retrofit with the standard. Mm-hmm. Do you have an idea of kind of what the current practice is right now? Are they still burying these things, or what?
Still burying them. Yeah. Up until last year, with all our inspections of our new construction, we were approving them as a buried thing. It's just been so common. And I don't know if Lake Tahoe Plumbing knows that. It's just one of this bubble of people allowing it to happen, and it's been common practice since probably the 50s, even earlier, and we just got to move away from that. I'm not the only one.
It sounds like a metering project. It sounds really expensive potentially if you're going to require folks to dig it up and.
Yeah, and there's Shane. There's also multiple ways to mitigate it. What we've moved towards is, which is also acceptable by the state, is in our meter pits, in the riser, there is a check valve on it, and we are ordering all our meter pits to have that check valve, and that is some sort of mitigation to come back to the district water supply. It's not testable. You put it in, you hope it continues to work. It's very hard to test it, but that's one of those practices of mitigation. I mean, the the burial of it, and it's just so common, and it's actually against code. So plumbers are putting them in. It's not the code, but here we are, right? And it's our jurisdiction. It's in our jurisdiction just to protect the district, right? Yeah. Now, I want to reiterate that the conditions have to be perfect. I mean, it's rare. Like, when you think about hydraulically this happening, it's rare. It's like those stars really do have to align for this to happen, but do we want to be at the mercy of that? I don't know. But having that valve open halfway, you've seen it where it fills the standpipe up if you have it open halfway. And so you'll notice that it's leaking, and that means that leak hole's open to air, and if we got a timing, right? If we have a break down the street, it's going to suck all that out as the back siphon situation occurs. It's, like when I actually put one in my house like 6 years ago, and I buried it and put like rock around it and a silk bag around it, but not everything's like that. And yeah, it could be just sitting in a pocket of really nasty water. Or, a mouse could go down this hole and die. And then it's just sitting there. Yeah. Yeah. I know, it's a big move. I totally agree with you on that. But I just don't want to be responsible for something coming back into our drinking water system.
Well, yeah, I guess it's just just to make sure I understand correctly. So this would just be for new construction?
As of right now, we're going to just kind of correct our course here and no longer allow them to be buried outside.
As of right now gives me worries what changes that. And I'll tell you why, because I'm not going to have people spending exorbitant amounts of money for something that hasn't been a problem since I lived here. Just to be real, that's not where this is going to go. And so, I'm in favor of, educating, starting essentially now educating people going forward, because I think what my concern would be in the immediate is people unaware they develop plans, now they're in a revisionary space, that costs time and so forth, right? We don't want to do that to people. I don't think that's fair. I think second to that is, we kind of get past that, and then through a range of attrition, kind of get to a space in which you look to do this. But sometime in the future, starting to exact cost on people for something that has worked for a long time, and that we did approve without a really definitive way to establish cost of what the jeopardy of the system, that I can't be supportive of. I think it's kind of just echoing what Shane was saying. Right? Not to discount what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying, but I think everything in life is a risk analysis, right? We do that every day with everything we do, so that's just how I kind of see that written down.
Yeah, just getting into that question of risk, and it seems like not everybody in the same situation in terms of groundwater infiltration into these systems, so there's probably areas that are more likely than others to hold groundwater, so it might be more of just a more targeted kind of approach, I guess. Yeah. Moving people off of those types of things into something more appropriately designed.
I agree. I don't want to be an alarmist either, right? I want to be sensible and respectful to the people's pocketbooks, right? But yeah, it's been recognized by the State Water Resource Control Board as a potential, cross connection point. But yeah,
in the state of California, the risk assessment is just far different from mine. I think you're responsible for people generally. I think a huge part of the financial burden we're all facing. Mandates and costs that are largely nonsensical. And it's just because the state does it, we live what we're not doing. Right. It's going to be one of the two. I think the way that it works, I think the state is run poorly. So just because there's that, again, no, and I love you, man. I don't want to be a fly. I don't think anything. No, absolutely. You know what I mean? Just, talking frank with you. Because I see your challenge, and that's why I'm more supportive of, kind of a going forward basis, and then looking if there is really troubled areas that we look to safeguard against those spaces.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to add one thing that I think will be interesting for the board. This cross-connection control plan and policy, we've had a policy for forever, really, and there's a section of the administrative code that basically contains that, and it talks about, the potential cross-connections and what our required mitigation is, and typically it's a backflow prevention device, so it talks about the specs. So where this is really coming from is that in December of 2024, the state of California completely overhauled their cross-connection, their state cross-connection control handbook, which is where all of the regulations that we have to follow are. So what they did is they had put out small iterative updates for a long time, not consistently, but this was a complete major overhaul. And so this cross-connection control plan that Ross was talking about, ours ended up being a 200-page document. So they passed this law or changed this handbook in December of 2024, and the deadline to submit this draft plan to the state was July 1st of 25. So they gave everybody across the state 6 months to do this. So what we got out of the changes that they made, basically, like I said, they were substantial, and the primary change was the regulations on the responsibility of the water districts to really enforce this were much greater. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. That's when the state requires this plan from us, is that they want to see what our plan is for basically meeting their updated policy guidelines. But the interesting thing, I think to your point, Nick, is that they really leave a lot of leeway up to the districts on how you do that. For example, they tell us what they want to see, and they really crack down. And this very stop and drain valve, the state called out specifically as like a cross-connection hazard that they're concerned with. I agree with you, and we talked about this. Look, it's the risk is relatively minimal compared to how we classify different cross-connection risks. But they don't have any deadlines for how you comply with this. So what they want to see is that we send in a plan and that we update that regularly. We're required to send them any updates to the plan annually, as well as some like progress reporting as we kind of go down that road. So they want to see what we're doing. The gist of it, as I see it, is that they want us to take it seriously, but they're open to us prioritizing these risks, and that's kind of how we do it. So I agree. That was what Ross and I talked about. But this one in particular is yes, it makes sense to ban this moving forward. That's kind of an easy one. But the ones that are out there, and how we mitigate that potential cross connection, that's a big question. And so I think the way that we've approached it is that, one of the new requirements that's actually going to be pretty burdensome for us in this new policy guideline is that we have to conduct a hazard assessment at every single connection in our system. So for every property, we have to document a hazard assessment, which basically consists of, what potential hazards for cross-connection exist at this property and how have we mitigated them. So for the vast majority of our single-family dwellings, it might be pretty straightforward. Basically, we're looking for hydronic heating that's connected to our supply, things like that, or chemicals that could backfeed. Then we'll require a backflow device. But the state does allow for different kinds of classification of risk. So that's kind of the approach that we're planning to take, is kind of the common sense one, to your point of just, what is the risk to the public supply and what is the appropriate mitigation? And we have some options on there. So it's not, we have to, like Russ said, kind of do that information gathering to see what we have out there in terms of this. What we're working on, looking at our priorities. The first thing that we did is look at what the state classifies as high-risk cross-connection control, basically businesses. So these are things like laundromats, dry cleaners, veterinary clinics. There's a whole list of business types that the state says these are high risk, right, for cross-connection. They're using dangerous chemicals, and they typically, you can have a hose in a bucket or something like that, and that's a risk for the public supply. So the first thing we did is look at, the businesses that we have, and we found some of them that are in that high-risk category that don't currently have any backflow protection. So these are the ones that we're kind of working with first. That is going to be an impact for these customers, but that's a much higher risk to the public supply. We've got to get a backflow on these connections. It's going to be expensive. So these are the things that we'll be talking to you about when we present that plan. We just wanted the state to approve it before we bring it to the board. I just wanted to give you some background on where this is coming from and why we're doing it now and kind of what the urgency is. But our overall approach is what Ross said, is it is our duty to protect the public supply, but we're balancing that with the cost to the customer and the relative risk. But there's going to be some costs to customers as we kind of roll this thing out. So we'll keep you up to date on that and, work with the board to to set the tone for how we prioritize these things and how we approach that program. But the state really is kind of cracking down on it. I mentioned the hazard assessments, and like I said, there's no deadline. So we put in our plan, we're going to conduct these over the next 15 years. And so we'll see if they're okay with that, but other agencies have had their plans approved with, similar things. So we're kind of feeling our way through it. We've got to do this, but we have a lot of control over how we prioritize these things, how we mitigate these risks, and, how fast we do it. So this is the start of what's going to be an intense public education and outreach campaign. The state also requires that Ross, as the cross connection control coordinator for the district, he's required to be an agency liaison. We've got to reach out to county, city, building departments, educate them on best flows. We're required to do community education. We're required to do all kinds of interagency stuff. So there's a lot of stuff in the works, but we just have launched a new website that talks about this, and we're working closely with Shelley and Lauren to really, since we don't have a deadline, we want to make sure that we're doing this right as far as getting the word out there and educating the public on what's coming. It is a statewide thing, so people will be hearing about this, but this is just the tip of the spear on this one. So you will hear a lot more from us on it as we go down this road.
What would be a catalyst to make such a kind of sensitive vision?
I don't know. I think it's just been one of those things that they decided to turn up the heat, and there's incidents, I have a backflow control book that has a ton of incidents in the back, just mile and mile long of incidents that have happened because of backflow and that cross connection contamination. Is people getting sick from it? More breaks? I don't know. I don't know what is causing them to turn this up to a level, but maybe it's just drawing awareness to it to make sure everybody has a plan and they're doing something. And maybe I don't know. I'm going to wait to see what the revisions are of my plan to make sure, kind of get a temperature check to see how serious we need to be or to let out the gas. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know that there really was a strong catalyst. I think it was just, it's just something that they looked at. Basically, they've had these policies forever and not strongly enforced them. And so that's what I see is now they're more strongly enforcing them, but they really have put it on us. I mean, they've not legislated that we have to do these things by a certain deadline or anything, at least at this point. So that's why we're trying to do it in a way that makes sense and balances out that, obligation we have to protect the public with just the burden of the state.
I appreciate your additional comments. I think you can make it as great as possible, and I appreciate your plan. I would just say, as open-ended as possible, in particular with, I would say, multifamily and single-family residential units. There's not going to be another rating needed in South Donald, right, just based on severe post-construction and quality of post-construction, right? And so you're going to have very, very few of those. That was just a small percentage of what we thought. But yeah, I just think, the increased cost of both is just something that, unless there's an actual demonstration of incredible community safety need, and based on my question today, I don't think that is. And so it's going to be possible. But finally, that's my motion. Maybe we can what you said. I appreciate,
Another.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 10, Paul. General Manager report?
Yeah, I just have one thing I wanted to bring up. 2 weeks ago, I reported that we were informed by the Tahoe Keys Property Owners Association that they had requested us to take on the Tahoe Keys Marina Development project because it was too large for them. 2 days after I reported that to you, I received a call from them that their board had actually officially voted and changed their mind. So as of now, they're moving forward as the provider unless something changes again in the future. Yeah.
Talk about backflow.
That's
That's a high risk area. Okay. Anything else on that? So it looks like we're off the hook on that one?
Currently.
Okay. See what happens. All right. I think that's pretty much it. Item 11 is the notice of past and future meetings and events. I think we're going to adjourn this meeting and move into closed session.
I'm not aware of any closed sessions.
Okay, I'm adjourning. There we go.